to tell me I was building a dream, and so I followed the mob. When there was earth to plow or guns to bear, I was always there, right on the job. Once I built a railroad, I made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower up to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, gee, we look swell, full of that Yankee doodly-dum. 500,000 boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with a drum.
My first memory of being around trains is growing up in New York City and driving on the subways. The subways were pretty common in New York, and that's how most New Yorkers got around. In fact, my parents didn't even own a car in New York City.
I grew up on a farm about 100 feet from a train track, and so we had freight trains going by there every day. They were always part of my life, and they were more in the way of pretty much everything we did because they were always running. They hauled grain and oil and other things back and forth, but we never really knew that when we were young.
This land is your land, and this land is my land, from the California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went a-walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, saw below me that golden valley.
Usually I think people view them as a way of travel, to visit family and friends, vacation, long trips, not usually short trips. I know sleeper cars were very popular, dining cars, all the trains had sleeper cars and dining cars. I think a lot of people were not ready for flight quite yet, and so they use the trains more often.
In the 1950s, when I was a teenager, my father, who used to work for the Pennsylvania Railroad in New York City, would get some special tickets for us so we could take a 26-hour train ride from New York City down to Miami Beach, which was a great experience. I particularly enjoyed the times standing with the conductor or the steward between the cars as we were traveling through North Carolina or Georgia, and with the sun rising and the smell of the diesel coming in between the cars. It was a good memory of a good time. The trains were at that time very important for the moving of freight. And throughout the country, the moving of either produce or livestock into the major areas of Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City. That's where the movement of that particular area of produce and livestock was paramount. And those markets then would then send the products, the finished products, to the larger cities on the east and west coast. So the central part of the country was really the heavier use of freight for the movement of those produce and livestock.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds.
My first memory of trains is the electric trains that we had down in our basement that we'd set up every Christmas. In my life, trains brought me groceries. When I was younger, there was a Amtrak train that used to go up to Duluth. And as I got older, that went away. So there wasn't a really big impact of trains except for having to stop while I was driving to let them pass.
I think there was a decline for a while. And when the airplane was really being used quite heavily to move business people around within a matter of a few hours versus a longer train trip, that's when there was a need to do something, and that's why the United States government stepped in to try to nationalize the rail system. And that's how we got the birth of Amtrak. My sense, though, is now, particularly with the latest investment of Warren Buffett into the Burlington Northern Santa Fe line, if you're familiar with Warren Buffett, you know he's a pretty wise investor. And I think he is foreseeing now that the train is going to become a more economical and more pollution-free method of transporting a lot of goods and services that might have been used more so on trucks